Okay, so in the last class, we looked at modular arithmetic, and I gave you few examples of fields with finite number of elements, especially which was not coming from modular arithmetic. In the today's lecture, we are going to look at certain applications of modular arithmetic. So especially in the RSA crypto system and designing a cipher. So these are two security applications in cryptography. So it's really interesting. You see that whenever you are logging to your banking account, or or anywhere when you are visiting secure site, what is the mathematics behind that? I will show you today. So you will be able to see. It's really beautiful. So before that, telling you the application, I need to talk about certain basics, certain backgrounds in number theory. So I will call it as elementary number theory. There are many books on number theory. If you want to read, of course, whatever we are covering is given in the book by Rosen. But if you want to read, there is one very famous book by T.H. Hardy. So Introduction to Theory of Numbers, which you can read. There is one book by Alan Baker, but I think this is good enough if you want to read more. Some of you may have more interest in number theory. So we are worrying about, we are looking at integers as 0 plus minus 1 plus minus 2 and so on, right? All these integers. One very important result in number theory is known as fundamental theorem of arithmetic. Fundamental theorem of arithmetic. So what is fundamental theorem of arithmetic? It says that any integer n greater than 1, n can be written as product of prime factors. That means it will be, say, p1 raised to power alpha 1, p2 raised to power alpha 2, and so on, say pk raised to power alpha k, where pi's are primes, and alpha i's are positive integers. So of course, if some of them may be 0, so that means that particular prime is not present there. For example, if I say that 15, so we know that 15 is 3 into 5, right? It's product of prime factors. 3 and 5 are prime numbers. Similarly, if I say that 16, so 16 is 2 raised to power 4, right? So here alpha i's are 1, here alpha 1 is 4 actually, right? So, or 18 is 2 into 9, right? So which is nothing but 2 into 3 square. Okay. So powers of alpha are 1 and 2 here. So any integer you take n greater than 1, it can be written as product of prime factors. Of course, given in n, finding these pi is a very difficult problem. I will explain to you that in a minute, why this is very difficult problem. Okay. And anyway, so now we come to what is known as how do we say that divide two numbers? Suppose a and b are integers. Okay, then we say that a divides b if there exists a integer k, right, such that b is a times k. If b is multiple of a, then we say that a divides b, which is very obvious, right? Because now you can write it like this. Okay. So a integer d is called common divisor. D divides A and D divides B. Okay. If it divides both, then you might have heard what is known as GCD, greatest common divisor, right? GCD of two numbers is nothing but largest of the common divisor. Okay, so I can define, because any integer a can be written as, say, p1 raised to power alpha 1, p2 raised to power alpha 2, pk raised to power alpha k, and our integer b can be written as p1 raised to power beta 1, p2 raised to power beta 2, or some other prime powers, say pk raised to power beta k, right? Then we can define GCD of a and b by this definition: p1 raised to power minimum of alpha 1 comma beta 1, p2 raised to power minimum of alpha 2 comma beta 2, and so on, pk raised to power minimum of alpha k comma beta k. Okay, this is how you can define GCD. Similarly, you can define LCM, least common multiple of two numbers a comma b, as, so I'm writing this product as partial product over I, pi raised to power maximum of alpha I comma beta I. Note that when we are taking greatest common divisor, the power we are taking minimum. When we are taking least common multiple, the power we are taking maximum. This is how this works. Okay. Another interesting thing, if GCD of a comma b is 1, then we say that a and b are relatively prime. Okay. Or co-prime, that a and b are co-prime, they're relatively prime if the GCD of two numbers is 1. Okay, then we have a very interesting result. If a and b are integers, okay, then there exist integers s and t, okay, such that greatest common divisor of a comma b can be written as s times a plus t times b. So in order to compute the greatest common divisor a and b, I should be able to find two integers s and t such that their linear combination should give us the GCD, right? So this is a very important lemma. I am going to use it. Proof I am not giving you. I think you can verify this by a couple of examples at least. And if you are interested, of course, proof is given in your book as well. Anyway, if another result is a divides product of two numbers b and c, okay, and suppose GCD of a and b is 1, then obviously then a will divide c, right? This is an obvious thing because there is nothing common in a and b, right? Greatest common divisor of a and b 1. So this is a elementary results about the greatest common divisor of two numbers a and b. Now I am going to give you one more definition. Of course, we are using it quite often. Suppose n is a positive integer. Okay, n is a positive integer. Fine. And suppose a and b are integers. Okay. Then we say that we write it like a is congruent to b mod n. We write a is congruent to b mod n if n divides a minus b. A minus b ka difference, so if a minus b is multiple of n, then we say that a is congruent to b mod n. Okay, so this is the definition. Now I'm going to mention a very interesting lemma which we are going to use later on. It says that if GCD of a comma n is 1, then the equation ax congruent to b mod n is solvable, and its solution is unique. I use these symbols, for uniqueness. So if we have an equation like ax congruent to b mod n, I want to find what is x actually. So if GCD of a and n is 1, then I will be able to solve. And the proof is really simple. So I am going to give you. If GCD of a comma n is 1, this implies that from the previous result there exist integers s and t, right, such that 1 can be written as as plus nt. This is from the previous result. If you see here, using this result, I am using this result here. GCD is 1, that means 1 can be written as SA plus TB. So here we have A and N. So 1 can be written as AS plus NT, right? This implies that if I multiply both sides by B, B is equal to BAS plus BNT, right? Now if I take modulo n on both sides, I divide it by n and look at the remainder. Obviously, we will get B is congruent to ABS modulo n. Why? Because this term will go towards 0 when we reduce it to modulo n, right? And this shows that x is equal to Bs is a solution, right? Because if you compare the equation, this equation and this equation, it is clear that x equal to Bs, if I substitute x equal to Bs, we are getting the same thing, right? So x equal to Bs is a solution. Okay. Now the second part, I have to prove that this is a unique solution. Suppose this is not a unique solution. Suppose there are two solutions, x and x prime are two solutions. In that case, what will happen? We will have ax congruent to b mod n, of course, and ax prime congruent to b mod n. Okay, this implies that ax is congruent to ax prime because both are congruent to b. That means ax is congruent to ax prime. Okay, now GCD of a and n is 1. This implies that n divides basically. In fact, we can directly do it by definition ax minus x prime. This implies that since GCD of a and n is 1 and divides x minus x prime, this implies that x is congruent to, by definition, x prime mod n. Both are same. So our assumption that there are two solutions is giving us that these two solutions are unique actually. Okay. So now using this small lemma, I am going to prove one important result which I mentioned in the last class, that integer modulo n is a field if and only if n is a prime number. Okay, I'm going to use this result there. So let us write down the result. Integer modulo n is a field if and only if n is a prime number. Okay, so let me start a proof. So there are two parts in the proof. First, I will assume that Zn is a field. Okay, so sorry, first I will assume that n is a prime number and I will show that Zn is a field. Second, I should assume that Zn is a field, and that will imply n is a prime number. So rather than proving the second part, what I will do that I will say that n is not a prime number, so Zn is not a field. I will take the not statement on both sides, right? So let me assume that suppose n is a prime number. Okay. Now n is a prime number, and suppose a is a non-zero element in Zn. I have to show that there exists an inverse for a. Now since a belongs to 1, 2, 3, since a is not equal to 0 or n minus 1, it will be one of these numbers. This implies that GCD of a and n is 1. Hence, using sorry. Hence, using this result, since GCD of a and n is 1, we have there exists x, a solution such that ax is congruent to 1 mod n.
Hello,
Right?
sir.
Yes.
Sir, what does congruent means here?
Congruence means ax minus 1 is multiple of n, right? Here in this means ax minus 1 is multiple of n. So congruence means, again so a is congruent to b mod n means a minus b is a multiple of n. That means n divides a minus b. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, in this slide, the last line,
Mhm.
and then ax minus ax dash. So what happened to that a?
Because GCD of a and n is 1, right? GCD of see, remember I have used the previous result here, which I have this one, something like this. If a divides product of two numbers and GCD of a and b is 1, then a divides c, right? I'm using the same number. So one of them is a, another one is x minus x prime. Got it?
Okay.
Got it? In other words, from here we can say that, we are dividing by inverse of both sides, because, that is also a way you can look at it. But anyway, so, right. So x is equal to x prime. Any other question? So here, in this, that Zn is a field if and only if n is a prime number, I have assumed that suppose n is a prime number, then I have taken a to be an arbitrary element in Zn. Then I can show that there exists an x such that ax is congruent to 1. That means every non-zero element has an inverse. Every non-zero element A has an inverse. Right. So that means Zn is a field. Right. So that means I have assumed this side and I proved this, that Zn is a field. Now I have to assume Zn is a field and prove that n is a prime number. So rather than proving this, what I am going to do, I assume that suppose n is not a prime number, and if I show that Zn is not a field, then also our job is done, because now we are taking the negation of the statements. So essentially what I am going to do here now, suppose n is not a prime number. If n is not a prime, this implies that n will be a composite number, right? Product of two numbers, say composite number, right? This implies that n is equal to AB is equal to 0 in Zn, right? In integer modulo n, if you divide anything by n, so because if I divide n by n, it will be 0, right? And but n is product of two numbers a and b, which is 0 in Zn, right? Now this implies that, right, Zn is not a field. Remember, the product of two numbers is 0, right? if A and B are both are positive numbers and the product is 0, right? Then there is a problem, right? So Zn is not a field. So this is a small and simple result. So Zn is a field if and only if n is a prime number. So in the, so that's why I think in today's class, some people ask why Z1 is not a field. So now you know that another way of looking at it is because 1 is not a prime number, right? The smallest prime is 2. So that's why Z2 is required. Okay. So now I want to mention another one algorithm which is known as division algorithm. Normally it is known as Euclidean division algorithm. This says that suppose n is a positive integer, okay, then for every positive m there exist unique integers q known as quotient and r known as remainder such that m can be written as nq plus r, where 0 is less than or equal to r is less than n. This is a very basic and important result. If n is a positive integer, then for every positive integer m, there exists unique integers q known as quotient and r known as remainder such that m is equal to nq plus r. Okay, so this is one very basic Euclidean algorithm. Now I'm going to arrive at what is known as Fermat's little theorem, which is very beautiful theorem. And actually, you have already seen a glimpse of Fermat's little theorem while we did calculations for finite field. But anyway, let me do it more formally here. So, first of all, I want to mention one result that for any a in integer modulo n and positive integers I and j, we have the following results. First, a raised to I mod n times a raised to j mod n is same thing as a raised to I plus j mod n. Right, we're reducing it modulo n, right? This is the first condition. Of course, this multiplication is also mod n. Second, a raised to I mod n raised to power j mod n is same thing as a raised to power ij mod n. These are two important results, I mean calculations, which is fairly straightforward to verify. I mean, you can, and it's obvious actually, right? Now let me give you one example, and from that observation we will observe something in the example. We arrive at a result. Suppose I take p to be a prime number, say it is 5. So I write down the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 up to p minus 1. Now I take a number out of these. Suppose I take a number a is equal to 2, and then I compute the following: I times 2 mod 5 from I is equal to 1 to 4. So I multiply all these numbers by 2. That's what I am doing actually. So what I am going to get, 2 into 1 is 2, 2 into 2 is 4 modulo 5, which is remains 4, 2 into 3 is 6, 6 modulo 5 is 1, and 2 into 4 is 8, 8 modulo 5 is 3, right? So what is happening? I am taking the numbers from 1 to p minus 1. I am taking a number, any number you take, multiply it with all the numbers, and you see that there is a permutation happening. Nothing more than all the numbers are coming same, repetition, but they're just permuted. Let us take another example and observe this. P is equal to 7. Write down the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Then consider this I into 2 mod 7. I is equal to 1 to 6. This will be 2, 4. Again, A is equal to 2 here, right? So 2, 4, 6, 1, 3, 5. We are getting all the numbers permuted. Got it? So I can do it with any number. I can take A is equal to 3. I will get the same thing, just permutation of the numbers. So this, yes, any question?
Sir, in the second formula, there is a to the power I or a into I inside the bracket.
A to the power I. A to the power I.
Then, sir, in this example you took, there is 2 into I, so that's a into I think.
Yeah, that is A into I. Yeah. Yes. This is A into I.
There should not.
What I'm doing, I'm taking A and multiplying everything here. Okay, in this set. So 2 into 1 is 2, 2 into 2 is 4, 2 into 3 is 1, 2 into 4 is 3. Modulo 5. Got it?
Sir, means every time we are doing mod with the P only, no, sir?
Yes, with P only.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Means then only we will get different permutation of the same set.
Yes. Correct. So whatever you observed, I can write it down as a lemma. Now, whatever we observed in this example, I can write it down as a lemma. And so lemma is very simple here now. Lemma says that.
So,
Yes.
so sir,
any question?
in
Yes.
that permutation, we receive the equivalent class of 2, right?
I
If
mean,
A
I'm
equal
saying
to
that,
2,
yeah, actually it is, yeah. So it's in a way, it is kind of permuting, So whatever numbers we have taken, model with respect to modulo operation, we are just getting permutation of the numbers. Correct. Okay.
yes, okay, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, in I equal to 2 in P and P equal to 5, we don't get first element as 1 because 16 modulo 5.
No, here I is what? I is from 1, right? So 1,
1.
2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have written it in this nice form. That's all. Otherwise, what are we are doing? 1, 2, 3, 4. I multiply by 2. So 2 into 1 is what? 2, right?
1, 2.
2. And then 2 into 2 is 4. Right? 2 into 3 is 6. Modulo 5, it is 1. Right? And 2 into 4 is 8. Modulo 5, it is 3.
But sir, we don't have to take 2 to the power 4.
No, I'm not doing any 2 to the power 4. I'm just multiplying. I'm just considering A times, I times A. Essentially, I'm getting this set as A
This
times.
last two example and the above two formula different or same?
Which one?
The last two examples you gave for P is equal to 5 and P is equal to 7 and the above two formulas.
They are different.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, they are different. Okay. So now this example tells us something interesting, which is this lemma in the form of lemma that let P be a prime number. Okay, prime number for a fixed non-zero element A in ZP, integer modulo P, right? The set I times A mod P, right? I is equal to 1 to P minus 1 are a permutation, okay, of the set 1, 2, 3, P minus 1. Got it? Whatever we observed, I have written it like this. This is what, I have written that when we consider this set, right, it is nothing but the permutation of the original set, So permutation of the set 1, 2, 3 up to p minus 1, right? Got it? Whatever we have observed in the lemma, we have written is in the form of a, whatever we have observed in the example, I have written as a lemma now. Now we comes to our main result known as,
Excuse me, sir.
yes,
Sir, here we have written I equals to 1 to p minus 1. In
yes.
other case, if we write I equals to 2 to
Hmm.
p minus 1, then we will be dropping the first digit 1.
I am not dropping I is equal to 1 is there, right? It is I is equal to 1 to 4.
Here I equals to 1 is there, but if other case, is it possible that we write I equals to 2?
No, I have to include all of them. Otherwise, will be dropping one. Then the permutation will not come actually. I is equal to
Okay,
1 to p minus 1.
okay, sir. Thank you.
Now it is Fermat's little theorem. It's a beautiful theorem. Fermat has given many interesting results. One of them was, Fermat's last theorem, which required 1000 page proof. But anyway, so this Fermat's little theorem says that if p is a prime number, okay, then a raised to power p minus 1 mod p is 1 in ZP. For each non-zero a in CP. Okay, so what it says that take any non-zero element a in ZP, raise it to the power p minus 1 and reduce it to the modulo p, we are going to get 1. Beautiful result, right? And the proof is based on the this lemma which we just now showed. So let us do this, something very simple. What I am going to do now, I consider the set 1 times a into 2 times a into 3 times a into p minus 1 times a, okay, modulo p. Consider this set. So we know that, this set, 1, 2, 3, the I times a is nothing but a permutation of the elements, right? So this is nothing but will be same thing as 1 into 2 into 3 into p minus 1 mod p from the above lemma, right? So it will be just permutations, right? Now the left hand side is nothing but, because we are taking the product, this will be factorial p minus 1, because 1 into 2 into 3 up to p minus 1, that is factorial p minus 1 into a raised to power p minus 1, because there are p minus 1 terms, we are multiplying a that many times, is same thing as modulo p congruent to this side is factorial p minus 1, right? Product modulo p, right? So now so here we have this product of partial product. So this factorial p minus 1 means 1 into 2 into 3 into p minus 1, and here also 1 into 2 into 3 into p minus 1, right? So basically each element has an inverse, because ZP is a field, so I can cancel them. So essentially I can cancel them. 2 cancels both sides, 3 cancels both sides, 4 cancel both sides, and so on. So essentially this will give us a raised to power p minus 1 is congruent to 1 mod p. Why? Since each 1, 2, 3 up to p minus 1 has inverses. So I can multiply with the inverses on both sides and I will get finally our result, which is this. Any question? Please ask if there is any question.
Hello, sir.
Sir, can you
Yeah.
explain this again? I didn't understand it.
Okay, so what I am saying that I considered this set 1 into a into 2 into a into 3 into a and so on up to p minus 1 into a, right? Modulo p.
Okay, sir.
Okay, now what is happening? You know that I dot a, if you multiply any number from 1 to p minus 1 with a and reduce it to modulo p, we are getting the permutation of this set, same set 1 2 3 up to p minus 1, right? That means all these things will be again 1 into 2 into 3 up to p minus 1 only, right? Modulo p. So same thing, right? So now when we multiply both sides here and here, so left hand side will be factorial p minus 1 times a raised to p minus 1, right hand side will be factorial p minus 1 times only. Modulo p is on the both side basically, right? So that means now each element 1 2 3 up to p minus 1 has inverses. I can I can cancel factorial p minus 1 on both sides, and I will get a raised to p minus 1 is congruent to 1 mod p. Got it?
Yes, okay, okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So now so this is, yes.
Sir, I think this theorem has an extension for a composite number as well.
Yes, there is a chemical numbers are there. Yes, which is interesting thing. So that is an exercise for you to check t time problem, right? Is it a possibility in some sense, right? So think about it,
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so now actually once we are done with this result, I can now go and do some interesting application for you. And one is, so if you want to write secret letters, what you do, I am going to tell you a trick here now. Using this modular arithmetic, you can write a secret letters. So suppose A, B, C, all the alphabets A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z or Z, whatever you call it. I can assign them numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, right? 0 say we have assigned numbers from 0 to 25, right? So essentially we are working in now integer modulo 26, right? Which has elements from 0 to 25. Now I want to write a letter. I want to say something. Suppose I want to say that our message is meet you in the park. Meet you in the park. I want to encrypt it. I want to create a cipher out of it. So what I do, one way will be I assign these values directly, right? In place of M, I will place 12. E, I will place 4. So 12, 4, 4. T means 19, and so on, right? Those kind of numbers we can assign. But then, it's a very direct assignment. Anybody can find it out. So what we can do here, I do an encoding. And the encoding is f of p is equal to p plus 3 mod 26. So I am shifting everything by 3 numbers. So what I can do first, I write it down numbers as it is. So 12, 44, 19, 12, 4, 4, 19, 1, 4, 2, 0, right? 13, 1, 9, 7, 4, 1, 5, 0, 1, 7, 1, 0. All the numbers. So M is 12. You can see from here, right? E is 4, E is 4, E is 4, T is 19, and like that I'm assigning all the numbers, right? We have got all the numbers here. Then each of these numbers I'm shifting by 3. So we will get 15, 7, 7, 22, right? 1, 1, 7, 2, 3, 1116 22107 1832013. Anything which is exceeding more than 26, I'm reducing it modulo 26. I'm doing this operation. Remember, everything is modulo 26. Okay, so we'll get some other numbers. Now, these numbers I am going back. So, what is 15 here? 15 is P. So, I can again go back and write down the message P H H W B R X L Q W K H S D U N. So, rather than sending this, I can send this. And this is the encrypted message. So, what we have done, we have shifted everything we mapped into this modular thing, right? It's modular arithmetic, and we are doing modular arithmetic modulo 26. Any question at this point?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, instead of 3, we can use any number.
Yes, we can use any number. Very good. Not only that, I can do one more. I can give you another example thing. I can say that I can use, say, f inverse of p, which is p minus 3 mod 26. I can do this also, the reverse. Or I can do, in general, f of p is equal to p plus k mod 26, right? That also we can do, right? In general, I can do another thing. Encoding will be a p plus b mod 26. So these are known as shift ciphers, you know. Okay. This is a more general thing. This is the most general encoding. Right. So it could be, you know, for example, it could be 7p plus 3. You know, you can do something like this. Okay. So, so f of 10, say, will be 7 into 10 plus 3, which is 21. Okay. Mod 26. So all these things are possible. So these are known as shift cipher. One beautiful applications of our modular arithmetics. Okay. Now,
Sir,
yes.
sir, here F inverse will again give that previous original message.
If we apply f inverse here, we will get the previous message. Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay, sir.
So I'm saying that in the first message, if I apply directly in inverse, we will get some other message. You know, everything will be shifted back, right? Because we need to keep modulo 26 in place. Okay. Okay. So now, so this is a nice example of modular arithmetic. Now I am going to solve a equation for you. Solve 3x is congruent to 4 mod 7. How do we solve it? Right? Now, since modulo 7 is there, z7 is a field, right? So we know that inverse of 3 will exist. So I can multiply it with 3 inverse on both sides is equal to 4 into 3 inverse mod 7. Right? 3 inverse is equal to 1 by 3 is equal to 5 mod 7. Right? So x, this implies that x is equal to 4 into 5 mod 7, which is nothing but 6 mod 7. Right? So this is how we can solve a equation over this modular arithmetic. Now, this is a single equation. Now I'm going to tell you something what is known as Chinese remainder theorem, solving a system of equations of congruence type, you know. So suppose we are given x is congruent to 2 mod 3, x is congruent to 3 mod 5, okay, and x is congruent to 2 mod 7. how will you solve? Okay. So in other words, I'm going to tell you now Chinese remainder theorem. It's a very popular theorem, and let me describe it with a small simple proof for it. Okay. So here is the result. Suppose X is congruent to A1 mod M1. Okay. And also we have X is congruent to A2 mod M2. Finally, X is congruent to AN mod Mn. Here, our assumption is that GCD of Mi and Mj is 1. They are co-prime to each other. Okay. And AIs are integers for us. Then this system has a unique solution X. Okay. X is less than M. What is M? M is nothing but product of these numbers M1, M2, Mn. Okay. We have a unique solution X modulo this M1, M2, Mn, or actually M. Okay. So how do we get this solution? So what we can do, it's a constructive proof that how to find a solution for this. Small m, so we know that small m is M1, M2, M3, product of all mi's, Mn. Write down capital Mk as small m divided by small mk, right? Whom k is equal to 1, 2, up to n. You can take anything. So this implies that now GCD of mk and capital Mk will be 1, right? GCD of small mk and capital Mk will be 1 because that is not there, right? So that means there exist from the previous lemma, there exist yk integers such that mk into yk is congruent to 1 mod mk. Okay. Therefore, yk is nothing but inverse of mk because the product is 1 modulo mk, right? And in that case, our solution turns out to be x is equal to a1 m1 y1 plus a2 m2 y2, because yi is, we know from here, it is inverse of mk, right? And so on, an mn yn modulo m. This solution is modulo m. M is the product of all, right? You can see that when you substitute x equal to this value in all the equations and reduce it to modulo m, you will get the, you'll get the desired result. For each mi's you will get the answer. This is a Chinese remainder. So solution is something like this. Okay. Yi's are inverse of these things. So I think this is fine. Any question up to this point?
Can you explain again?
Okay, so now I am going to show you our yes.
Sorry, what do this exclamation mark mean here?
That means unique solution, has a unique solution. X.
Okay, and sir, from mk is equals to m by mk, how did we imply that yk that exists, yk belong to z such that mk is
Okay, because
inverse of yk?
GCD of mk and capital Mk is 1, then I have used a previous result here. You see, this result here. This one. If GCD of A and N is 1, then the equation Ax equal to B is solvable and the solution is unique, right? So there
Yes,
exists This result we have used here.
Okay, understood, sir.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you something beautiful. 1 minute. Now,
Excuse me, sir.
yes, please ask. Yes.
Sir, I have a question.
Mhm.
We talked about the shift cipher.
Yes.
In that we had an equation f of p is equal to ap plus b, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So for that we have only 26 possibilities for a and 26 for b. So
Yes.
there are
Everything is
total only.
no. Everything has to be reduced modulo 26. So whatever calculation we are getting, right, this will be reduced to modulo 26. So everything will be remain in that set only. It is not going outside the set.
Yes, sir. So we have total only 676 possibilities to cipher the text. So
Yeah. So
anybody can write a program to take out all the possibilities and see which message makes sense.
very good observation. This is true actually, because this was the initial days cipher. Now nobody uses this kind of cipher. Okay.
Sir, I have another idea about it.
What?
So, sir, I will introduce one more variable that will represent the position of alphabet. Means its value will be 1 for first alphabet.
So
Its
you
value will be
you
2
try
for
to
second
try
alphabet.
to create your cipher and send it to me. I can tell you what is going on. Okay, you don't worry about it. Okay.
Okay.
So now I'm going to describe you something really beautiful in the security and cryptography system. So, by the way, this is the first cipher that was used. Apart from modular thing, can you observe something unique here? This is known as omnia per omnia bilateral cipher used. So this is, I have taken a picture from Francis Bacon's book 1605. This is the time of Shakespeare. Okay, so you see that A is all 5 A's, capital B is 4 A's 1 B. It's kind of binary encoding.
Yes, sir, binary looks like binary. Yes, sir.
It's a binary encoding. But do you observe anything special about these characters? Anything special? You can see that in the English, alphabet, there were only 24. J is missing and U is missing. In 1600, in English, there were only 24 alphabets. Okay, this is something interesting to observe. You can see that, the spelling of house is what? HOVSE. U was not there. Court is COVRT. Okay, this is the English in 1600. Anyway, this is interesting to note. Anyway, so if I ask you one interesting thing, in the cryptography, one very important thing that has come up is the idea of public key exchange. In 1976, known as Depf and Hellman key exchange paper. This is a very famous paper, remarkable discovery. Let me explain in a loose form what is that. What does that mean? Suppose in the class there are two people who want to communicate, right? And so normally in the cryptography literature they call Alice and Bob, or there are two people who want to communicate. Alice, and they can send a letter. They can Alice can write a letter, but put a letter in a box or maybe a briefcase and lock it, and then you can send it across a corrupt postal system. Suppose there is a postal system which is very corrupt, okay, and you send that. Alice is sending that letter to Bob. So Alice can lock, but then the Bob doesn't have the key, and if Alice sends key, they can be compromised, right? And even take the key. So Alice cannot send the keys also. So how to solve this problem? Alice wants to send a secure message to Bob using his or her own key. How should we solve this? Any idea? Any idea? How to send a message?
Sir,
Yes.
So can we send the briefcase and keys via two different channels?
No, channel is only one channel is available.
They can use the language that they only know. They too only know.
No, it's not about language. It's a handwritten paper. It's a handwritten letter. I mean, it's not about language.
Use
Plain
use one
English.
more encryption method to encrypt the key.
So, like what?
Sir, I mean, the message will be encrypted using the key, and the key can be encrypted using some other technique.
Well, no, that is not going to work. Now, here's the beautiful answer to this question. What happens? Alice put the letter.
So we can,
Yes.
So we can, sir, as the letter has a format. So
Yes.
in the end, sir, obviously, if someone is gonna sign the letter, then like Alice is signing the letter to Bob, then she's gonna write the name of Bob somewhere. So we can encrypt the name of Bob in some like Bob is gonna recognize that name, like Alice has written my name. So he's gonna decrypt that name and find the formula to the whole cryptography.
No, but this is in the plain English. There is no secrecy here. Letter is sent in plain English. Okay. So,
Sir, I think when the first letter was passed, in that he should write the key at the end for the decryption of second letter.
no, it's not about the key. Actually, the key is a lock. You have to put a physical lock there. Okay. No, it is not in the form of encryption or decryption. See, you see the beautiful thing. I'm going to tell you the solution. What Alice does, she puts the letter in a briefcase and locks the briefcase with her own key, right? And Alice is not sending the key. She sends the briefcase to Bob. Now what Bob does, Bob puts his own lock on the briefcase. Okay. So while the first journey of the briefcase, it is locked throughout the channel, right? And nobody is able to open because it's locked. Physical lock put by the Alice. When it reaches to Bob, Bob has put his own lock on the top of the Alice lock and send it back. When you send it back, actually two locks were there. And now when it comes to Alice, Alice will open her own lock by using her own key. Now the briefcase has a lock of Bob's, and Alice sends a lock the briefcase back to the Bob, and then Bob will open using his own lock, his own key, right? Because that lock was put by Bob himself, right? Got the idea? So this business is quite useful, quite beautiful, right? The solution is quite beautiful, right? So this is how the thing is, the public key crypto system. This idea, was evolved into the public key crypto system, but little bit different way. And so you see, this crypto system was designed by Rivest, Shamir, and Edelman. Rivest was a professor at MIT. Shamir was also working with Rivest, who they have created this crypto system, and this was tested by Edelman. Edelman later on also discovered DNA computing. So it is the backbone of current security on internet. RSA crypto system is really a backbone. So I'm going to explain how RSA crypto system works, right? Okay. And in fact, in reality, I will show you on the bank website how things are there. So it was done in 1977, and so it is based on a fact that integer factorization is a very difficult problem. Okay. So now what do you mean by that? If I ask you, if I have a 2000 digit number, how much difficult it is to factor that number? Any guess, any idea? It looks like there is a estimate given by Umesh Vazirani in 1994 for factoring a 2000 digit number. It's not just the case that all the computers in the world today would be unable to factor that number. It's really much more dramatic. Even if you imagine that every particle in the universe was a classical computer and was computing at full speed for the entire life of the universe, that would be insufficient to factor that number. That much difficult it is. And it is because of this difficulty. So the crypto system works on two prime numbers, and an integer n is chosen by multiplying two prime numbers. I'm going to explain the algorithm to you, but so that is a very very important. So if you are able to break the integer n into two large prime numbers, you can break the crypto system actually. And since we cannot do this, we know that our system is secure. However, recently with the invention of quantum computers, actually in 1994, we are now, that many of you may be aware of quantum computing. Many things are going on right now. Actually, you may be able to break these systems, because quantum computers can factor integers in a polynomial time. Okay, so here is these numbers which are known as RSA numbers. You see RSA 100 decimal digit, 303 binary digits, and $1,000 prize was given if somebody can factor. And Lenstra has factored in 1991, and he got the prize. These numbers were broken up till 2020, February 28, 2020. RSA 250 number was broken, and you see the prices is $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. And some of these things involve parallel computers, 16 computers in parallel, they were used to factor. So I am sure in your class there might be many people who are champion of competitive coding. So I invite them, can you factor these numbers using writing program? Okay, here are some more examples. $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 prize is given for any of these numbers if you can factor. Some examples: RSA 250 is this number, and the product of two prime numbers is this, this and this. Here is RSA 260. It is a 260 decimal digit, which is 862 bits. This is the number, okay, which has not been factored so far. So any competitive coding guys can come forward and challenge their brain, try to factor this. Then they realize the real programming. Okay. There is R270 which is not been factored. R896 not have been factored. A crash price of $75,000 was previously offered for successful factorization of this. Of course, this price has been discontinued now because we know that quantum computers are there, but this is a challenge. Okay. So I think that's all. Any question about this?
Sir, these RSA numbers are factored into two different prime numbers. Okay.
Correct. Two different prime numbers. For example, RSA 250 is like these two prime numbers. So you have to write a computer program which can factor, say, RSA 260. This is the number. You have to factor into two prime numbers. That's all. Very simple thing, right? If you can produce a factor, you can publish a paper immediately. And of course, you will be well known. So, you may be challenging yourself with competitive programming, but here there is more than competitive programming, Remember, I promise you that I will give you many more challenging problems, which merely competitive programming will not be able to do anything there, So can you write a program to factor these numbers? Something very simple, right? So,
sir, what if their number is prime itself? Then it cannot be factored, right?
no, that cannot be factored, right?
Yes, yes.
So I started today's lecture with fundamental theorem of arithmetic, right? Given an integer n greater than 1, I can write down as a product of prime factors. Okay, so that is the key thing. So maybe I can show you. I think I will not start the algorithm today because there is not much time right now, but I can show you maybe on the we go to some bank, say ICICI Bank. Okay, you might have seen these things. Now you see there is a little lock here. I open this lock and look at the certificate here, and you see there is a RSA encryption. Here is a 2048 bit key size is there, and there is an exponent. And what is exponent, how it is used, I will explain to you in the next class actually. Here is a number which is used. It's a public key is used. There are two numbers which are public. This number and this number. This is written in hexadecimal format. So you have to convert it into the decimal. Okay, and 65537 is used here for encryption. Okay, so this is something is really interesting. I think today we don't have enough time to cover this algorithm, but in the next class I'm going to cover this. So maybe you can look at any secure site and see what is the RSA. You can actually copy this thing. You can copy this number and see what is the actual number. I think this number is something around 180 if you convert it into decimal. Anyway, so I think it's up to you. You try to look at these certificates. Okay, digital certificate. Any secure site will have these digital certificates, and these keys are exchanged before transmission is allowed with the bank or any secure site. Okay, so we are going to look at the algorithms in the next class. Thanks a lot. If you have any questions, please ask.
Sir, so the product number was exchanged, or the two prime factors are exchanged?
No, actually that I am going to tell you in the algorithm. So I think wait for the algorithm, because today we don't have enough time. So next class I am going to explain the algorithm, then you will understand really well. Okay, I don't want to start okay, so it's a nice thing. Yeah. By the way,
sir, in
one thing.
Galvo field, sir, in Galvo field 9 we have 6 equations that are not being solved by 0, 1 and 2. So sir, we will have different tables for all of them.
No, so I think whichever you see whichever is available, and try to construct a thing, and maybe you can see the relationship if there is a possibility. Remember, I think in the field with 8 number of elements, all the elements in one field, if you raise it to the power 3, you will get the other field elements, with respect to the appropriate modulo operation. So there is a connection. So that's why I said you try to find a connection. By the way, I wanted to mention that this book by Bruce Schneier, Applied Cryptography, Protocols, Algorithms, and Source Code in C, is a very useful, beautiful book. Most of you, rather than doing competitive programming, look at this book. It's beautiful algorithms are given. I will, in fact, RSA, I'm going to take it from here, and then implementation is also given. So you can see how in the real world systems are secured here. This book you can actually buy if you want. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, you told that previously that when RSA crypto system will break, will you repeat it again?
Yeah, so RSA crypto system can be broken using quantum computers. So quantum computers, Peter Shor has discovered a polynomial time algorithm, a fast algorithm for factoring integers into prime factors. So that's why I think people say that now it is not safe, though still we are using RSA crypto system, because the commercial quantum computers are not available of that level so that they can factor, because in fact 7-qubit quantum computer is available from IBM and other companies are providing access to quantum computers, but not up to the qubits which will be sufficient to factor these integers. So that's why still we are using RSA crypto systems, I think, but soon we will stop using them.
Okay, sir. And sir, what is means why there is the competition like to break for breaking into two multiplication of two prime numbers?
Competition is there because the company wanted to make sure that nobody has any algorithm known which can factor it easily. Because if you can factor, their business is gone, right? The business is based on this factorization.
Okay, sir.
Right.
So now, so the RSA encryption that you showed us was one of that which were not encoded till now.
Which were not encoded. It's not about encoded, which is not able. People are not able to factor break the RSA crypto system till now. Okay. So in fact, I will show you, the algorithm, and one can study the attacks and everything, which is a different part. I mean, you can find in this book. I'm not going to go into those many details, because then that will be purely cryptography class. But I'll give you the algorithm, how that algorithm works, because it's beautifully based on Fermat's little theorem and this modular arithmetic. So you will enjoy the algorithm. You will see why it is working. Okay. Okay. Any more
And
questions?
sir, what we are supposed to do in tutorial?
In tutorial, you have to implement the RSA crypto system algorithm to actually send a secure data. I will that is given in the tutorial. Okay. So you have to implement. You have to write a code either in C, C++, Java, Python, whatever you like. You have to implement it and verify that it is working. In the last class when I taught this, students have verified and they enjoyed it. They were surprised to see how it is working. So when you see the algorithm, you will enjoy it. Okay, so next time I will show you the algorithm in the next class.
Sir,
Okay.
these RSA numbers are made by multiplying two prime numbers, right?
Correct. Multiplying by two prime numbers.
Means that prime numbers are random.
What do you mean by random?
Means how the banks choose which prime numbers to use.
No. So now what happens? There is a company which specify the things. So when a bank, suppose you want to have a secure, so bank wants secure communication, so they buy certificates. Those certificates are using it, and your browser is actually doing all the calculations for you. All the things are done by the browser. Okay, so you don't have to worry about anything.
Okay, sir.
Okay, I will stop now because I think I have another meeting.